Renewed fighting in Indian-controlled Kashmir. The killing of a rebel leader provokes more anger and military force. Is it time for India to change its Kashmir policy? And are conditions conducive to a political settlement? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. You know, you could say there's a tragic predictability to the conflict in Indian-administered Kashmir. You see, every so often we have unresolved grievances bringing large numbers of people onto the streets. Protesters are met with tear gas and bullets, and the bloodshed creates more anger. And at least 30 people have died, with hundreds more injured in the latest unrest following the killing of a 22-year-old rebel leader, Burhan Wani. In a moment, we'll discuss whether it's time for the Indian government leaders to start dealing with Kashmir as a political problem rather than a security one. But first, Imran Khan sets things up.
5-year-old Zora is just one of many injured as Indian security used bullets, pellets and tear gas to quell days of demonstrations in the state capital Srinagar in Indian-administered Kashmir. Zora was hit by pellet fire, and doctors who are used to seeing injury are shocked.
She has a very grave injuries on her head, on abdomen and on her legs. And she's only 5-year-old child, and this is very saddening to see. She's being victim of this thing.
Others here have also suffered grave wounds. This 20-year-old wanted to show his support for the commander of the Kashmiri armed group, Hizbul Mujahideen, who was killed in a gunfight with the Indian army. His funeral attracted thousands of mourners on Saturday.
We were going to the funeral of Burhan Wani, who was killed by security forces. While doing so, we ourselves were targeted by the security forces. Many of us got injured in the process.
For now, a curfew is introduced, a quiet on the streets of Srinagar. Dozens of people have been killed and more than 100 security personnel injured during pitched battles between security forces and the protesters.
Reasonable restrictions have been imposed in those places where there is an apprehension of loss of public property. We don't want that people should be harmed due to clashes with the security forces, especially our youth and children.
Separatist sentiment and social issues in the Muslim-majority region has caused the recent rise in unrest. For decades, Kashmir has been at the centre of a strategic tussle between India and Pakistan. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera.
Well, Kashmir is a hotly contested part of the world with the potential for war between two nuclear-armed states. An unofficial border called the Line of Control separates Indian-administered Kashmir from Pakistani-administered Kashmir. The two countries have fought 3 wars over the region. The Indian government says the whole region is an integral part of India. The Pakistani government says the territory is disputed and officially supports Kashmiris in their struggle against Indian rule. Time now to bring our guest into the show. We have joining us from New Delhi, Rakesh Sinha, Director of the India Policy Foundation. And in London, Mirza Waheed, Kashmiri novelist and author of The Book of Gold Leaves. Welcome to you both. If I could start with Mirza in London. Even though disturbances in Kashmir, they've always, well, for a long time, I shouldn't say always, they've long ebbed and flowed. It seems like this is the most serious spasm of violence that we've had in years. Why?
I agree. This is the worst violence since 2010. And I want to briefly talk about 2010. In 2010, we had similar protests. Thousands and thousands of people marched in the streets of Srinagar and towns and villages of Kashmir. And by the end of that summer, 120 people were killed, many of them teenagers. The youngest was 8 years old, who was basically bludgeoned to death for merely standing on the street, on the roadside. And then, after all this death and mayhem, the policymakers in Delhi and in Kashmir decided that, we need to deal with these protesters in a different way. We need to introduce different crowd control mechanisms. And then we heard that a new kind of weapon was introduced that will not kill Kashmiri protesters, but only injure them, thwart them, halt them when they are protesting. And this weapon is called a buckshot gun or a pellet gun, which basically, when you fire at a crowd, it sprays hundreds of steel tiny pellets into the bodies of these young protesters. But now, coming back to 2016, the Indian military apparatus in Kashmir that holds Kashmir for Delhi has basically used both live bullets and these pellets. At the end of yesterday, or this morning, as I read reports, we had 90 young people with injuries to their eyes, and doctors say most of them will lose their eyesight, partially or completely. And of course, there's 35 people killed in less than 2 days.
Right, but Mirza, my question
people
is, what's provoked? We understand that, you know, there was a young leader of the armed groups there that was killed. What has provoked, though, such a strong turnout? It seems like authorities weren't expecting that to provoke such a strong reaction in the streets. Is it simply over the death of Mr. Wani, or are there other issues here which are coming out on the street?
It's both. It is historical anger against Indian rule and triggered by the killing of a popular rebel leader. Now, why would large numbers of people come onto the streets knowing very well that they're going to be fired at and they might be killed, they might end up dead? Because the issue remains unresolved. The underlying dispute is still there. So the trigger can be anything. This year, it's been the death of a militant. Some time ago, 5 years ago, it was what is called in Indian parlance a fake encounter, where three innocent people were taken to the forests of Kashmir and murdered and then branded as terrorists. But eventually, even India's own investigating agencies revealed that these people had nothing to do with militancy. And that's what provoked protests then. What I'm trying to say is the underlying dispute, until that is solved, we will have more deaths, we will have these annual almost ritualistic violence visited upon the Kashmiri population. And it's not going to die, sadly, and I'm sorry to sound a pessimist here, it's not going to end. It's not going to end until India leaves its historic intransigence and decides to talk to Kashmiri people.
We'll come to the point of political negotiations in a moment, but I want to turn to Rakesh and say, Rakesh, do you feel that Kashmir is simmering out of control in some kind of vacuum in terms of perhaps attention from New Delhi? It's just being left to simmer out of control.
No, I begin with correcting your premise that the man who was killed in an encounter, Burhan Wani, was a militant, was an extremist, was not a leader. And why I am correcting so? His father, Muzaffar Wani, gave an interview to a national daily of India, Hindustan Times, in October 2015. In that interview, he categorically said that my son had chosen the path of militancy. I knew that he would die and he would reach to God. Any bullet from Indian army is not going to kill my son. He would reach to the other world, that is the God's world. So he was a militant. And he was following the Wahhabi ideology. The Hizbul Mujahideen, the organization he belonged, has this Wahhabi ideology.
Right,
that is a
here,
danger to the
Rakesh, but
entire
we really
world,
want to steer the show rather than a discussion of whether Burhan Wani was a good guy or a bad guy. What I really want to, the question I'm trying to pose is, why are we seeing such a strong reaction from the street in Kashmir? Obviously, people are very upset.
I'm coming to that. No, first thing, that Jammu Kashmir is a part and parcel of India, and it is an integral part of India. Why do I say? There is evidence. There is a democratically elected government. And a few weeks ago, the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Mufti Mahbooba Saeed, she was elected from Anantnag, the very district where disturbances took place. She was elected by 12,000 margin, just double to her father's margin in 2004, 6,000 votes. So where there is a democratically elected government, it is wrong assumption that Jammu Kashmir is merely Indian administered state. It is a part and parcel of India as other states are. Second thing, why this disturbances took place?
Can I come in here?
When a militant,
Sorry,
when
Rakesh,
a militant was killed,
if we could focus on the, I really don't want to have this sort of discussion about Kashmir as whether it should be part of India or Pakistan or independent. If we could really analyse, I'd appreciate it, Rakesh, if we could analyse what is going on in Kashmir from your perspective to provoke such a strong spasm
Yes.
of violence that we're seeing right now?
Look, Kashmir is not entire state, Jammu and Kashmir. Kashmir is one part, and this disturbances is taking place primarily in South Kashmir. There are 4 districts in South Kashmir, that Anantnag, Sopian, Kulgam, and Pulwama. In these 4 districts, traditionally militants had certain base and pro-Pakistani elements are active. And there is an estimate that there are 95 militants in the state. Out of that, 65 are in this South Kashmir. This is Pakistani instigated activities in South Kashmir. They got an opportunity after the killing of the Burhan Wani, and they created a sentiment. The blunder was that surrendering the body to the family. Body should not be surrendered. Any militant who is killed, it should not be surrendered to the people, because that creates a kind of sentiment. They instigated the people. So it is a temporary phase, it is a transitional phase. There is no disturbance. Kashmir is disturbed just now because the person was killed, and the slogan was Islam in danger. Slogan was that Kashmiriyat is in danger, but
How
there's
do you
nothing
respond,
like that.
Rakesh, to those who
There
say
is-
it's a bit
Can I
harsh
come
to
in
say
here? Can I come
that
in here?
families, relatives shouldn't get the bodies of their slain relatives?
Yeah, it should not have been given to the family, because this is a kind of sentiment. They instigate the people. When the people are instigated, they come on the road. I say there was a curfew. Why people come to the road? And this was not one-sided violence. They have thrown out a vehicle containing policemen into a river, and policemen died. So many policemen died in that violence. So the state has just taken a precautionary measure, and I think the deaths are unfortunate. Those people who died, they should not have died. They should not have died. But the situation was created by a certain elements who joined the movement, and they are pro-Pakistani elements. They are the brain and money of Pakistan is working in South Kashmir. Now India has to protect its sovereignty against the militancy of Pakistan. And last line, militancy is not a problem of India only. It is a problem of the entire world. Entire world
let's
is
give
facing the
Mirza a
militancy.
chance to come back
So
on this.
if
I
someone
think
is supporting militancy, someone
I'm
is
sure we
giving
can go
legitimacy
on
to militancy.
on this point, Rakesh. We'll come back to you in a bit, though.
See,
Go ahead, Mirza.
You see, this is the kind of historical illiteracy that has brought India to this state. You can't call people, hundreds of thousands of people who march on the streets, that they have been incited and it's instigation by Pakistan. People come out on the streets because historically a large number of people in Kashmir have never wanted to be with India. Now, the context might be different from one year to another.
How would you respond to those who say Pakistan has made no secret of its support for those who are struggling against Indian rule?
Pakistan is a party to the dispute, but I always say both the countries have to leave their intransigent, rigid positions. India keeps talking about the integral part. Pakistan has in the past talked about Kashmir as its jugular vein. Both the states need to stop treating Kashmir as territorial property. It is not a territorial dispute. The primary dispute is to do with the aspirations of Kashmiri people. And time and again, for the last 30 years and even before that, Kashmiris have been saying, we want a seat at the table. That is the core of the dispute. If Mr. Sinha is so confident about India's position in Kashmir, they should have a referendum, and people will have their say. And then they can, live happily ever after. If Kashmiris decide to stay with India,
should I intervene?
Can I finish, please? We let you finish, Mr. Sinha.
Wrap up, Mirza, if you can, in 60 seconds, and then we'll give Rakesh
If Mr. Sinha is so confident about India's position on Kashmir, they should have a referendum, ask the people of Kashmir, all kinds of people in the entire state, and then we can all live happily ever after. But what I'm trying to say is Kashmiris are the primary party, and you cannot shoot your way out of a crisis year after year by having blood on the streets of Kashmiris. The people you call terrorists or Islamists and jihadists are common people like you and me who are, having no hope and out of despair come out on the streets, knowing very well. Nobody comes out on the streets because of instigation, knowing very well that the soldier who he sees as an alien aggressor is going to shoot him dead.
Okay, all right. Let's give Rakesh, I'll give you 60 seconds, then we're going to try and move this discussion on if we can. Rakesh, go ahead.
No, I see that there was a democratically elected government. There was an election, and militants and pro-Pakistani elements appealed to boycott the election, but nobody boycotted the election. And just now, a few weeks ago, the Chief Minister Mufti Muhammad Saeed was elected in Anantnag. She is being supported by BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, and there is allegation that RSS is pushing its agenda in Kashmir. Despite knowing this fact that this government is with the support of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is a part of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the Chief Minister got elected. There were 28,000 people voted, and out of that 17,000 voted for the Chief Minister, and rest of the people voted for the National Party. So there is no say of separatists. This is a kind of referendum for a democracy. For the this election is being conducted by the Election Commission of India. If there is a base of militants and pro-Pakistani elements, if they don't want to be part of the Indian Union, a large number of people would have boycotted the election. So election is
Rakesh,
the
let me
best
pose this
index
question to you.
for a particular state and people.
Why doesn't India allow referendum? That's always been a point which India has opposed. That is the question which Mirza posed to you. If you're certain that the people of Kashmir do not support those who are struggling to break away from Indian rule, why not allow the referendum then?
No, why should go? The election is a referendum. If we go for election and separatists want boycott, we can't accept everyone's demand of referendum in any state. It is not in the Indian Constitution. Referendum is not part of the Indian Constitution. And Kashmir
That's because Kashmir is not just another state. That's because Kashmir is just not just another state. It's not just another. It's a historically
no,
internationally
Kashmir is just like
recognized
any other state.
That is what I was talking about intransigence.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen, let me try and move the discussion forward here. Mirza, are we seeing a new breed of militant arising now? Educated, employed, not just people who are unemployed, from influential families. Is something changing within Kashmiri society?
It is changing, and I go back to my original point. It is changing because time and again, the Indian state does not address the political aspirations of the people. When time and again, year after year, you have a massive crackdown against ordinary people. You have sieges that last for days. You have people, there's a friend of mine who's visiting Kashmir right now. Gravely ill people can't get to hospitals, can't get medicines, can't get food. Okay, when you do that to a people for decades, why would they want to be with you? It's as simple as that, one. And when you refuse to meet their political demands, you're pushing people up against the wall, which means a young boy at the age of 15 decides to take up arms. Burhan Wani, you rightly said, it's a different kind of militancy. It's homegrown. These are boys who are not going to Pakistan to train as militants. They have grown up with the conflict. They have seen nothing else but 700,000 armed Indian soldiers patrolling the streets and roads of Kashmir.
I disagree.
They see their home as this home.
By Pakistan.
Let's give Mirza 30 seconds, shall we say, to wrap up his thought, then we'll come back to you, Rakesh.
They see their home as a colonized space and they decide to resist. Burhan Wani's family, his father is a headmaster, his mother is a postgraduate. Why would a young boy from a middle-class family, educated family, decide to take to the gun, knowing very well that he's going to kill? Mr. Sinha mentioned his father. His father also said that he knows that the age of a militant in Kashmir is about 7 years once they take up arms. They knew it, and yet they take to the arms. And India is responsible for that state of affairs, for pushing a new generation of Kashmiris towards militancy.
All right, Rakesh, go ahead. I'll give you now 30 seconds.
It has nothing to do with the new generation of the Kashmiri. It is a Wahhabi ideology, and a Wahhabi ideology has no relationship with the economic status of the people. Anyone can be part of the Wahhabi ideology. His father and his family is guided by Wahhabi ideology. Secondly, Hizbul Mujahideen is being funded by Pakistan. This is open secret. There is nothing secret in that. Pakistan is funding Hizbul Mujahideen, the organization which is committing terrorism in Kashmir Valley, in particular in South Kashmir. And lastly I say that this militancy is at the last stage because democratically elected government, there is a reaction from Pakistan because Kashmir is now completely integrated in India. People's verdict is for the Indian Constitution, Indian Union.
Okay, let me try.
Mr. Sinha, it is depressing that you must demonize Kashmiris at this hour when 90 young people have been blinded by India's secure armed forces in Kashmir. And 35 have been killed, butchered on the streets of Kashmir. It is unfortunate, it is tragic, you have a right to your opinion of course, that you must demonize the entire Kashmiri population at this hour when the blood is still
Okay,
not
Mirza,
being washed on the streets of Kashmir.
let's distill that point. Rakesh, would you concede that there are genuine grievances that the Kashmiri people have when it comes to human rights, rule of law, law and order? I mean, the Amnesty International report of July the 1st, 2015, talked about, quote, a cycle of impunity for human rights violations in Kashmir.
No, there is no human right violation, and there is a sporadically attack.
So
and
Amnesty's got it
clash
wrong?
between the security forces and the militants. There is sometimes feuds between the security forces and the militants take place, and these are the militants who instigate the people and the local people.
Sorry, Rakesh, Amnesty says the army has dismissed more than 96% of allegations of human rights violations. And no single member of security forces have been tried for violations in a civilian court. Are they wrong?
These are wrong allegations. Army's role has decreased. There is a democratically elected government. The people have elected the party which has base in the South Kashmir, the PDP. And the Mufti Muhammad Saeed, her father, late Mr. Saeed, they all belong to the same place where these disturbances took place. And the Chief Minister had taken the categorical stand. Now she had taken the categorical stand. She condemned even the soft terrorism. The Kashmir has been witnessing the soft terrorism for a long time. So they are at the last leg.
Okay.
At the last leg, the Pakistan is trying its best. And then last point,
all right.
Pakistan is facing the battle between two Sharifs, the military chief Sharif and the political head Sharif. And this battle is making some impact on the Kashmir Valley.
Okay, Rakesh, we've got a couple of minutes left. If I could try and move the discussion on, let's talk about.
Can I come on the human rights issue? You know, I think Mr. Sinha hasn't read reports of India's own investigating agency. Oh, sorry.
All right. Let's try and move it on, if we could, and talk about the possibility of a political settlement. Mirza, do you think that the conditions are conducive now, that the Prime Minister Modi in India is in a better position to seek a settlement than perhaps any other Prime Minister since 1989, because he's got a full majority in Parliament?
He's got a vast majority. He's a very powerful Prime Minister. I would say that if he wants to act as a statesman, they should have a summit in Kashmir, meet the Pakistani leadership in Kashmir, and meet Kashmiris on the table, and solve Kashmir for all times to come. That's one. Two, I want to quickly add to Mr. Sinha's suggestion that there is no human rights violation in Kashmir.
Okay, in 15 seconds.
India's own investigating agency, CBI, has indicted army officers for killing people extrajudicially.
Okay,
if Minister Sinha reads the reports, then
all right, you made that
help
point, Mirza. If we could continue on the political discussion, because I think we have 30 seconds left. If you can go ahead, Rakesh. Why isn't Prime Minister Modi making more of an effort to resolve this politically, Rakesh, in 30 seconds?
I think this government had taken a major initiative, and when there was a flood in Kashmir, it was Prime Minister who gave the 1,000 crore rupees package to Kashmir. He went during Diwali in Kashmir to spend his festival days in Kashmir. So there is a kind of emotional, economic package and emotional package. Both packages this government is giving to Kashmir. Second, very important thing is that it is not the question of Kashmiriyat or the militancy. It is the question of nobody is raising that Hindus are being killed in Pakistan. They have been decreased from 15% to 1%. In Bangladesh, the Hindus have been decreased from 22% to 6%.
Right.
They are always raising the question of Kashmir because they are using Kashmir as a tool.
That needs another show.
Kashmir can't be a tool of India. It is an integral part of India. That should be clear
I'm
to
afraid
everyone.
we are out of time, gentlemen.
We wouldn't be talking here.
I'm sorry, we do have to leave it there. This is obviously a very deep discussion. Perhaps we'll be back to talk about this and the other topics Rakesh wanted to raise in other shows. For now, let's thank our guests, Rakesh Sinha and Mirza Waheed. And thank you for watching. You can see the show again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com, And for further discussion, head over to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, our handle @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami, Zeidan, and the whole team here for now, it's goodbye.